So today's topic, my topic will be about communication. So what actually is communication? Basically, transferring of information from one place to another. So what information? There can be many types, but not just information between one place to another, between two persons or two different nodes. This is what actually communication is. So, but the communication has to happen in an effective manner, so that whatever the source is trying to transmit to the receiver has to be understandable by the receiver. So what actually they are communicating, there are plenty of data types actually. So for example, one can communicate, transfer text information, like message or text, whatever we do in the WhatsApp or in the chat application, everything. We can transfer text, and we can transfer images. Again, WhatsApp is a good example. Images, of course, don't consume much bandwidth. It can be easily transferred, so that a lot of information can be sent over a picture. And they can also transfer audio. So we see a lot of audio conferencing apps, video conferencing apps. So most of them involve audio. So audio is of two different types, to be very precise. They can be either a speech signal transmission, or they can be a musical signal transmission. So audios are a very good source of information actually. And finally, video. This video occupies a larger bandwidth, to be very precise, to transfer from one place to another, and it's a composition of all the other things. Basically video is nothing but frames of images, right? So videos can be also transmitted, and videos of different formats and all of the stuff. But maximum size which any data type will take is definitely goes to video, because it is huge. It involves a lot of data in it. So how are they actually able to transmit? There are different modes of transmission, like wireless mode or wired mode. So are there any problems in transmitting these in wireless mode? There are plenty of problems. One way is we have to deal with noises. Another way is when we are trying to transmit the signal, we have to make sure the signal is of appropriate form. See, for example, consider one problem. If I'm trying to transmit the signal in a wireless medium, obviously need what called as antenna. Antenna is a device which converts alternating signals into electromagnetic waves. There are different types of antennas, and for example, let me take a monopole antenna. So imagine I'm trying to use a monopole antenna to transmit an audio signal from a place to another, okay, from one source to another. So what, imagine the signal's frequency is somewhere around 1.5 kilohertz. So the antenna has to be structured in a place or in a column at a height of certain formula. So that formula is this. So H is equal to lambda by 2. So lambda is equal to C by F. Okay. So lambda is wavelength of the signal, C is frequency of the signal, velocity of the signal, and F is frequency of the signal which I am trying to transmit. So imagine the frequency of the signal which I am transmitting is 1.5 kilohertz. So let me put in this formula. Antenna height is equal to C by 2F. So C, velocity of the signal, we usually assume it to be the velocity of light itself. So 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second, divided by 2 into 1.5 into 10 power 3. So what basically the answer is? 10 power 5 meters, which in simple terms is 100 kilometers. Do you imagine that how can anybody build a structure of 100 kilometer height to transmit any signals? Not at all possible. See, we cannot even imagine a base station, the towers which transmit signals, to be even 100 meters. So 100 kilometers cannot be possible. But if at all it has to be possible, think about the pillar structure they have to dig onto the earth. It should be somewhere several kilometers. Not at all possible. So this kind of transmission cannot be made possible at all. So how can this problem be solved? They have to increase the frequency of this message signal. So 1.5 kilohertz is the frequency of the original signal. If we try to change the frequency, it alters the characteristics, attributes itself. So how am I going to change? It is called frequency translation. I can change the attributes of the message signal without changing its properties by a technique called modulation. So modulation has a big advantage actually. There are plenty of types in modulation, but hope you would have heard about modulation in different fields. For example, singers like Lata Mangeshkar or for example Jeyakumar, they are all good for modulation. You know why? because they have that dynamics in their voice. Their voice will suit to different actors or different actresses also. So what modulation is? Changing the attributes of the signal without destroying its own properties. So if you want me to give another analogy, think about an example like a student. Obviously, my students. If any student has to go to his say his office, he gets a placement, he gets placed in a good company, so he wants to go to his office. So imagine that student's office is somewhere around some 2 to 3 kilometers from his home. Okay. So case one scenario is he walks all the way for 2 kilometers, go to the office, and of course walking for 2 kilometers will consume a lot of energy, and he will definitely feel exhausted after reaching the office, right? So this is one scenario. Okay. Second scenario is he has a Jaguar car. Hope you know what Jaguar is, right? The car, a ship of an ocean or something like that. It's a car where you don't even feel a little pothole if you drive over it. So that's a car, Jaguar, and latest version S7 or Coupe, whatever that is. So he has a Jaguar car and he owns it, he drives that car, and of course he has all that power bass systems, jazz systems on his audio systems and all. He tunes it, he listens it for the entire volume, okay, and then he reaches his office. Now think about his character, think about his mind. Doesn't he feel refreshed? If I am in his place, in his seat, I would definitely feel awesome. My day will become like refreshing for the entire span of time. So this is what calls modulation. Modulation, the modulator, the message signal is the person itself. But the carrier is the Jaguar car. So with the help of a pickup signal, a carrier signal, I can transfer or get the attributes transferred from one place to another using modulation. So modulation is physically defined as varying the characteristics of the message signal. Of course, not entirely part of the characteristics. To be very precise, it should be varying the attributes of the carrier signal with respect to message is what called as modulation. So there are plenty types of modulation. Three basic types are amplitude, frequency, and phase modulation. So again, the definition goes like this. Amplitude modulation is defined as varying the amplitude of the carrier with respect to the message while keeping the frequency as well as phase of the carrier unchanged. That is an important thing to be noted. I cannot just play around changing the attributes of all the properties of any carrier signal. I have to just change one particular property so that I will feel control of it. Of course, there are methods, but that's different. So again, frequency modulation is similar to that, changing the frequency of the carrier with respect to the message, and phase modulation, phase of the carrier with respect to message. So what are we basically bringing in is, because of using this modulation is, basically one thing is, I can translate the message signal to any frequency I want, okay, that is frequency translation. And I can transmit the signal at different aspects or perspectives, and irregular of antenna heights I can transmit the signal. That is the use or the need of amplitude modulation, to be very precise.